Sha-Rock. Don't stop. Just turn on your mind when you're ready to rock.
Because the sun won't shine, the rain won't stop, but we got a style called punk rock. Just get about the jazz, stop to have some fun. We're two DJs looking for a +1. To the people out there, we want you to know we are the ones with the magic show. We're two DJs and 5 MCs, 4 other fellas +1 is me. We're here to please everybody.
Legend, Funky 4+1, B-Girl, MC, first woman hip-hop artist on wax. She's the great MC Sha-Rock, and I want to welcome her to the library of Tim Einenkel. Thank you for being here.
Got you. And we on now?
Yeah, we're going.
Snap.
We're going.
Huh? We good? Is it live?
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, stop playing. Okay. So what you want me to say? Because, see, I can talk. I love hip-hop to the fullest.
When you read about you, you began as a B-girl, and in the earliest days of the South Bronx.
Yes, sir.
What was the scene and the culture like for you late in the 70s? What drew you to the culture, and what was your kind of earliest memory of what hip hop is?
Well, for me, Tim, for a lot of your audience that's listening, and shout out to Chuck D. I appreciate it. That's my dude. I love him to death, and I like the way he continues to excel, in his craft. But for your audience that don't know who MC Sha-Rock is, I am the first female MC of hip hop culture. I'm also a founding member of hip hop culture. And let me say that again, a founding member of hip hop culture. But when everything had begun to start moving forward. And I say that, also to say that I am the first female MC that was a part of an all-male group,
right,
which was originally the Funky Four before it came the Funky 4+1 more. So for me, Sha-Rock, I got my start, in the Bronx, in late 77, I became it started for me in 1976. In 1976, what was going on in the Bronx at that time, it was so many different things, we were coming up in the era of, condemned buildings and a lot of different things were going on at that time. But what gravitated me to what we now know as the hip hop culture was the fact that in 1976, I was introduced to being a B-girl. And a B-girl, what y'all may know now, and some people may call it, is breaking.
Right.
So in 1976, I was a B-girl. Break dancers, for whoever doesn't know what, the B-girl is. By 1977, I became the first female MC of hip-hop culture. So whatever anybody may have said or told, or y'all may think that it was somebody before Sha-Rock, that's not true. The problem was, and the reason why that information has never been, maybe released or you may not have known is because a lot of times when the media do coverage of hip hop culture, the only thing that they say is, okay, it started in the Bronx and the father of hip hop is DJ Kool Herc. Right. And they only name Kool Herc, Grandmaster Flash, and maybe Theodore. But then they go straight through the 70s without finding out what was really going on in the 70s. And a lot of times, especially when you were not there, sometimes people take the word of other people. And so some of that information is suppressed,
right,
where you don't really know what went down. And I say, to the media, and everybody that's out there, that say they hip hop historians, it's like I just really wish that they would have took the time to really do the research on the 70s and what was going on, in that time, instead of really just going past and not knowing or not, trying to find out what went down. So as MC Sha-Rock, I was on that front line. I helped create the culture. I was that woman and that little girl that used to help hook up, the speakers, the sound systems. You know what I'm saying? Just being there, assisting, carrying the crate records on the front line, played in every single area of the Bronx in New York City. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. And I'm talking about as an MC. But let's go back. In 1976, when I became a B-girl, not all, but most men, that were going to, the parties or the parks or whatever, people like Grandmaster Melly Mel from the Furious Five, or, Keith Cowboy, or some people may know the Nigger Twins. Now, may sound derogatory, but in the 70s, that's what they were called, because there were two twin brothers who were good breakdancers. Now, although they didn't become MCs, it's people like Melly Mel, or, Cowboy, MC Sha-Rock, or KK Rockwell, that were B-boys and B-girls, but transitioned over to becoming MCs. And if you were there and you were on that front line, doing the era, of really when the B-boys and MCing started taking off between, 76 for B-girls and B-boys, and the 77 MCs, and then really taking off into 78, then me being that B-girl, I was able to travel around to every section of New York City, because I traveled because I wanted to hear those break beats so I can break dance. If they had a park jam, I would go. If they had an inside jam, I would go. And so I knew who was out there. I knew who was an MC, and I knew who was the B-boy, or if there were B-girls. I knew that. So a lot of times, when people say, I was out there and this is what I did, or you may not have known me because you were on that side, of the Bronx, that's not true, because I was a B girl. So I went to every part of the section in the Bronx to break dance, just like I did in Manhattan, just like I did in Harlem, just like, when I became an MC, I was all over New York City as an MC. And so most of the people that were there, like on the front line with me, and there were a select few, they know the deal, and they know, what I did for the culture. But I had gotten married, at 20 something, years old. So I left New York City and I traveled, with my husband that was in the military, around the world. And so I always assumed that my history was locked in because the information was there. For anybody else to have said that they were like the first female MC or anything like that, if they would have took the time to check the flyers, if they would have took the time to check the cassette tapes, because the cassette tapes was like the mixtapes that y'all have that is out now.
Right.
But we were doing cassette tapes in the 70s. Even like social media and following and trending. MC Sha-Rock and the Funky Four was trending back in the 70s because we had little or no resources. And what I say by that is that we didn't have radio. And I must say much respect to you for allowing me to come on the show. But in the late 70s, radio wouldn't even listen to us.
Right.
They wouldn't play the type of music that we were playing in the parks. They wouldn't play the type of music on the radio. At that time, when I became the first female MC of an all-male group, we had little or no resources, and that is the Funky Four. Three guys and one girl. We had no resources, no radio, no way to really let everybody know what we were doing in the streets and the parks. And I'm saying, as far as MCing, the only way that the Bronx knew and New York City knew was by word of mouth, or by flyers, or by cassette tapes that people used to make, just so they can, take to their prospective areas. If they were coming from the Bronx, if they was coming from Manhattan, if they was coming from Queens to see what was going in the Bronx, they would tape it or buy the cassette tapes from, Richie T, which was the owner of a club that allowed us to go, like in the late 70s to MC. They would try to buy the cassette tapes from his store, which was called the Rhythm Den. But we had little or no resources, which meaning that we had to pass out flyers, word them out, cassette tapes. But when we did that, when you went in late 77, 78, what it did was it would bring people from all over the world to the parks, to the street yards, to the school yards, that we were playing in. And in the summertime, we would go inside to the clubs. Now, for everybody that don't know, my history, there is not one female MC before me. I don't care if you hear that, oh, I'm the first female soloist, I did this and I did that. MC Sha-Rock, me, I can prove everything that I say. Why? Because I have the receipts. I have the cassette tapes. Y'all may call them mixtapes now. I have the cassette tapes. I have the flyers. I have the word of mouth. I have footage. And the only reason why people were allowed to suppress that information and not speak on it, because I wasn't in New York City to protect myself. Because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, the information is there.
Yeah.
Nobody can't run around here and lie about it because the information is there and I can prove it. And so when I began to start realizing that the world didn't know who I was, the world didn't know that MC Sha-Rock was on the front line to help move this culture forward in the 70s, when the world didn't know that MC Sha-Rock was the first female MC, or I was, the first female a part of an all-male group, or I was the first female to use the echo chamber behind my voice, or I was the first female to have a record deal, first hip-hop female to have a record deal. And for anybody that don't understand what that means, is that I didn't come into the game in 1979 and just did a record. Mm-hmm. I was on the streets in the parks of New York, rhyming as an MC, helping this culture move forward before 1979, which meaning that in 1979, that was the onset of probably like about 6 or 7 different rap records that was out, from the Sugar Hill Gang to King Tim, to Curtis Blow, Lady B from Philadelphia, and also the Funky Four plus one. We were the first authentic group to record a rap record in 79. But Tim, I'm assuming that the world noticed because the information is there.
Right.
So when I came from back overseas with my husband, when he was stationed, in Fort Bragg, I started going in. And I started shutting down any different stories that were told about who was first or the information that was suppressed. Then I started coming forward and say, look, this is what it is. For everybody out there that claim to be hip hop historians, right? I deemed them wrong, because they were supposed to protect the true history and the true story of hip hop from its beginning. And they never took the time to check what somebody else said. They just wrote it because it was a story.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? And so my thing is that if you speak on something, especially when hip hop, because I carry this in my heart. You understand? And I'm passionate about it because it's something that I helped create it. It was never about the money. It was never about the monetary aspect of it, because guess what? I ain't never made no money from it. I did records with Sugar Hill Records. I ain't never get paid from it. You understand what I'm saying? But that was never an issue for me, because at the time, it was never an issue for me because I carried hip hop in my heart to this day. And I love the culture. I don't care what people say it should be or it must be or this and that. I know what I helped create it. I know what it means to me. And just talking about it brings tears to my eyes. But I tell you, there is no way that my information should have never been told.
Yeah, obviously a lot.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I think you bring really good points in terms of, what was it like for a female to stand up, go up to the mic at this time at all? I know, no matter you and the women after you, like, what was from your contemporaries? What was why did it take so long for a female to get on? the microphone.
It didn't take that long.
I mean,
not for me.
No, I'm not saying, but like, why? It seems like this seems like there was hesitancy for some reason for a female to step up to the mic.
So let me tell you about me and my era, and I'll tell you the time frame for me. So like in this 77, in the 770, beginning of 78, 77 was a year when, you know, the MCing form of the way that the MC was MCing took to effect. By you know, beginning of 78, it was you know, widespread in the Bronx. I never had that problem, Tim. Why? Because I came out the gate swinging as an MC. Not a female, but as an MC. Remember, I come through the era of the inception of hip hop, so, which meaning that for every male that was out there, you know, or got on that mic, I had to be just as good as they were, if not better. Okay, so I never dealt with, you know, the way that maybe, you know, some people say, well, it's only like 1 or 2 females out now. You know, why would it take so long for the next female to come up? I was running New York City. Why? Because I honed my craft. I studied my craft. I loved hip hop. Even though at that time, we knew it was hip. We would say hip hop, hippity hop in our rhymes, right? But then when we really started bringing everything together as a culture, okay, well, this is hip hop culture. So you may hear, you know, like some people may say, oh, you know, it wasn't called, you know, hip hop culture. Hip hop until, you know, like 92, something like that. But that's when the world started calling it. But if you was out there in that street, you know that all the elements that's supposed to be a part of the culture was celebrated. Some of us said hip hop in our rhymes. You understand what I'm saying? But I didn't never have to deal with the problems of male and female because I was an equal. When I was back, you know, in the 70s, to look at me, maybe that was a plus, but that's not what my skills were built on. My skills were built on the fact that I was an MC. Being a female was a plus, but I was an MC. And if you don't believe me, then what you can do is you can ask people like Chuck D, you can ask people like Run from Rum DMC. He will go online at any time and tell anybody that I was inspired by MC Sha-Rock. When I heard her tapes floating around, even throughout the 80s or the 70s in the streets of New York, I thought that she was almost like 90% better than the males, if not better. I was inspired by MC Sha-Rock. He just sent me something last week, you know, and I sort of kind of lost it in the email because I wasn't able to download it and whatever. But the thing is that when you find people like DMC, when you find people like Puff Daddy, Sean Puffy Combs. You go online and you could find something when he does an interview and he said, when I hear Sha-Rock, I never met her before, but I was mesmerized by her voice. Yeah. Or the Funky Four was my favorite group. When you listen to, people like the Beastie Boys. The Beastie Boys was winning an award one time and they were being celebrated on VH1. And one of the things that I think the commentator asked them was, who inspire you? So one of the Beastie Boys said, the Funky Four, Sha-Rock from the Funky Four. You understand what I'm saying? So the thing is that it was not the fact that I was ever had to push through to separate myself from the males. I honed my craft. Honed it so much that in the 70s, it carried over to the people like DMC, the Beastie Boys, even to this day, Fat Joe, right. That would sit and talk about it, how I was that MC. Even so much that is one reason that landed us on Saturday Night Live. The first rap group, or I like to say hip hop group, to ever be on authentic hip hop to be able to be on national TV. Why? Because we were playing in places like Soho. We went outside of our box, and like just not staying in the Bronx or going to Harlem or Queens or Manhattan. We were playing in places like the Soho, in the Mud Club for punk rockers. So we made the transition from hip hop to punk rock, brought it together, playing in those places. This is why you would hear people like the Beastie Boys say that, because we didn't even know the fact that 1 or 2 or 3 was in the crowd when we performed in those places like that, and that was one of the reasons that landed us on Saturday Night Live, because the only 2 groups that was killing New York, in the 70s was the Furious 5, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, and the Funky 4. So don't let nobody else tell you different. We were holding New York City down in the 70s.
How did you, what's amazing is that when what's amazing to me is that what I think I was doing when I was a teen.
Yes, sir.
Wasn't, I like the confidence level probably was not there, but you obviously exonerate, even at 1979, this and prior, this amazing confidence.
Yes, sir.
Lyrically and just as a performer. How did you find that voice? Like, how did you, what was going on personally? Maybe not personally, but what was going on for you within the culture, with the artists that you were seeing, with the B-girls, B-boys that you were seeing, that gave you this confidence? Like, I'm going to take this microphone and own it.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. My movie is going to be starting to be filmed in the fall. And without giving out too much information, it was my mom. It was my mom that made me have that confidence. The trials and tribulations of what I was going on as a young woman moving from North Carolina to New York, seeing everything that was going on, I had to learn fast. But at the same time, I came up through the era where hip hop was my only resource to what was going out around, in New York City. Politicians wasn't helping out, burning buildings, drugs, everything that was going on in New York City at that time. That at some point, not that, I was using them, but you saw it, and so it's like it was I don't know. It's just that when I rhyme or when I write a rhyme, it just took me to a whole different level where that was something that I knew that no one could take away or no one could, infiltrate, because I control the destiny of how I wanted people to see me or wanted to hear what I had to say, and so I think that it may sound corny, but I'm telling you that's being a B girl and being an MC at that time. I didn't even knew that I was making history, because it was just something that was there or came natural. None of us knew that it was going to go to the level in which it has, because at the time we weren't even dealing with the assets or the money or how much money that you can make. If we went to a party, in the 70s, just being able to get $2 or $3, from the people that came in, and if they paid $2 to come in, or they paid $3 to come in when it was time for the winter shows, if our manager gave us $20, that was good for us. You know why? Because that was enough for us to get money to get on the train or the bus or get White Castle burgers. That was good. No, for real. That's how we live.
Yeah.
That's, you get $20. That's what it was. But money wasn't a factor back then. And it wasn't even a factor when myself and the Funky Four, to me included inside the Funky Four plus one, had a record deal. Because we weren't even thinking on the level of money. Our parents didn't understand the music business. They didn't know. All we knew is that at the time we were dealing with cassette tapes. So we were like and to include myself, was like stars in the streets in New York City. You understand what I'm saying? We were stars in the streets of New York City. So even with the cassette tapes, now, if people are hearing us in the Bronx and Manhattan and Queens and Staten Island and Long Island, maybe now when we record this record, people will be able to hear us all over New York City, that we don't miss
Real quick,
anybody.
and when you say cassette tapes, you mean cassette tapes in terms of people handing them out?
No, cassette tapes is like, remember back in the day?
No, but I'm saying...
No, because they would buy them. At that time, they weren't selling them on the street. A lot of people would just collect them.
Right.
Just so they could listen to them and walk down the street with their boom boxes playing.
Yeah.
Or you had like people like that had record stores, you know, that would sell the cassette tapes out of the record stores. And this is, when I say cassette tapes, I come from the cassette tape era, meaning that how people were able to hear me outside of the Bronx or maybe in different boroughs was because they somehow got their hand on that cassette tape, just like DMC did. That's how he was able to hear me when he used to come up and go to school, and you know, he's from Queens, came up to Manhattan to go to school, but he heard the cassette tapes in Manhattan, even though I was in the Bronx. And so that's what I mean by cassette tape. And if they were selling them, I didn't know that. I just only knew that you could only
money
get
wasn't going to your pocket.
Oh, no.
Right, no, just to clarify for people that don't, you know. Like,
No,
it's like someone...
Tim, money didn't even go in my pocket when I was signed to Sugar Hill Records. That's another thing.
I want to ask you about that. So, in 1979, the Funky 4+1, Rapping and Rocking the House was pressed onto single for vinyl for Sugar Hill.
No, let's go back. Rapping and Rocking the House, that record was our first record deal. It wasn't under Sugar Hill. It was under Enjoy Records. Enjoy Records were like the first premier record label that was out of 120, I think like 125th, 26th Street on 11th and 12th Avenue, something like that. So that was the first premier label. So you heard people like Spoonie G, you know, was on that label. You know, later after us, it was the Treacherous Street. At one time, the Furious Five is on that label. You know, and a lot of other people had came to that label, but we was like almost the first rap group to sign to that label, Enjoy. So the record that we did was called Rappin' and Rockin' House, which was the longest rap record ever. I think it was a little bit over 16 minutes or whatever. We recorded that record in one day because we were, you know, rhyming to our rhymes off of Sherilyn, Got to Be Real, which was how that came about. Because, and if your audience don't know, and some of them may know, is that for all the disco songs that were playing at that time in New York in the late 70s, rap music made those songs even more popular. Because when you had like the Sugar Hill Gang that came out in 1979 with Rapper's Delight off of the Good Times beat, we in the streets were already rhyming to that song. Already. Before records, we was rhyming to that song. When we heard that song, we was furious. Because all of a sudden, here we is on the streets of New York, in the Bronx, Manhattan, whatever, rhyming to that song, hardcore MCs. And then the Sugar Hill Gang makes a song off a song that we're doing in the streets. And bam, it's success overnight. Now, I'm young. You know, I'm 16, 17 years old. I'm young, mad as hell. Because everything that I was doing on them streets, even as a female, they become an overnight success. But then I had to fall back. Because no matter what, as I got older, no matter what, they had a hit record. And they had a hit record that really took rap music and exposed it to the world. So if I love one element of hip hop, which is rap, then I had to respect the Sugar Hill Gang, because now they opened the rap element
Right.
up to the world.
So when did Funky 4+1 get signed to Sugar Hill?
So all of us is on all from the Furious Five to Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five to the Funky Four to other groups that came after us. We're all signed to Enjoy Records. Now, Sugar Hill Gang had already had their Rapper's Delight song out. Sugar Hill, Miss Robinson, brung up from South Carolina the Sequence, which they did the song Funk You Right on Funk You Right. So they were living with Sylvia Robinson. She brought them up, to court. So during that time, she had already had the Sugar Hill Gang. She was signing the Sequence, and almost during the same time, the Furious Five was leaving Enjoy, going over to her as well. So what she did was she found out who was the best groups in New York City. Not saying the Gang or Sequence, because Sequence was from South Carolina, right. But all the groups that was killing them, in the streets. And what she did was found a way. And there was a scout that had came to us and said, look, Miss Robinson, from Sugar Hill Records is interested in y'all coming over to Sugar Hill Records. And so we were already signing to Enjoy, but we're young. So in the back of our mind, we thinking, okay, well, look, she got Sugar Hill Gang songs all over the radio. You know what I'm saying? They're traveling, people know, we have Rapping and Rockin' House, and then people know what's in the street, but maybe we can be able to be on the same level far as with the Gang, to be able to, have our music go where their music is going, because guess what? We are authentic MCs.
Right. We
know how to pull it off. And so we were torn. Some of the group, like we had our manager. Our manager was like, y'all need to wait. Y'all don't understand the business. I don't even understand it like that. I don't think y'all should really sign right now, because you really don't know what's going on or what's going to happen with this situation. Because he had a relationship with Bobby Robinson, which was no affiliation to Sylvia Robinson, but Bobby Robinson was the president and owner of Enjoy Records, and then you had Sylvia Robinson and her husband that had owned, Sugar Records. So he warned us to just fall back. But we young, we was like, listen, we've been doing this on the streets for a while. Now it's time to really take it to another level. We're going to sign, or we're going to at least go out there and speak to Sylvia Robinson and find out what it is that she could offer. And so she offered us, a good deal, all the things that she was going to do for us, and, this and that and this. And we're like, oh yeah, okay, this and that. So, she had told us that she would find a way to get us out of our contract, right? So we're negotiating. I guess, I could say she was negotiating with Bobby Robinson, and we got out of our contract. So in 1979, we was with Bobby Robinson, one record deal. But by 80, we was in negotiation to sign with Sugar Hill Records. And I think by 81, we had That's the Joint, out, which was, one of our biggest songs, ever that we recorded, on Sugar Hill Records. And so we went against our manager, Jazzy D's advice, and went on and signed with Sugar Hill. And as I said before, our parents didn't know. All they knew was that we was doing what we loved. They didn't know. So we signed contracts. My sister signed a contract for me, and she wasn't even legally supposed to, because she wasn't my legal guardian.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But the thing is that, we did it. We did it, and we signed it Sugar Hill. And we signed the Sugar Hill.
And so what happens next? I mean, you signed to Sugar Hill, and things are
okay.
rosy?
So we signed. 16, 17 years old. I signed first female MC with a record deal with Enjoy, and the first authentic female MC from the brand. And when I say authentic, it doesn't matter, and I'm not taking nothing from nobody else. But it doesn't matter that you recorded, like in the same year that I did. The fact is that I was on them streets. I helped created this culture. Rapping was just one element of the culture. So nobody, no female that ever recorded a record in 79 or after that had the accolades that I did. I'm hip hop. I started this culture. So when I signed, to Sugar Hill, she promised us a lot. And everything that she promised, the touring, we did. The records on the radio, she did. The money, never saw. There were times when we were out, on the road. We went on the first hip-hop tour ever in 1981. Or actually, yeah, in the beginning of 1981. Because, I think it was, 1981. Because we had we was out there with the Sugar Hill Gang. We was out there with the Furious Five, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. We was out there with the Gap Band. At that time, they were hot, in the streets of New York. We were out there with Sky, and we were out there with Wayne and Charlie, who was a ventriloquist. So we were out there touring states all over the world. The first ever hip-hop tour was run by Sugar Hill Records. We was out there. We waited days out there to get our money that we were supposed to get every night. Mm-hmm. One time we saw her come out. We waiting. But we young kids, we broke. We ain't got no money. But we torn. We on stage doing everything we love. Rhyming. Killing it. Because the two people, I should say the two groups that were handling, that were the authentic ones that was from New York City was the Furious Five, Grandmaster Flash and Furious Five, and the Funky Four. So we were giving the world the rawness of what was going on in the Bronx at that time. So we were loving what we were doing, but we weren't getting paid for what we do. Whenever she came out there, and we saw her one time, she threw us a couple of $100, right? But we on tour. We're doing cities after cities after cities after cities, and didn't see the money for the time that we were out there. We got free food, because they used to give you free food before sound check and all that stuff. But we didn't see the money that we were supposed to see when we was out there.
Was that everyone that was on tour, that kind of the same boat?
I don't know.
There wasn't a conversation.
I don't know. I know the complaints didn't come. We didn't hear no complaints from them. We didn't hear the complaints. But we was mad. The Funky 4+1 was mad. And let's go back. When I tell you, you have the Funky 4 and then you have the Funky 4+1. I'm the original member of the Funky 4. I helped create the Funky 4. When the Funky 4 started out, I was an MC, in late 77, but then the Funky 4 came together in 78, in the beginning of 78. So the Funky 4 consisted of me, Raheem, who later went on to the Furious 5, because at the time they were the Furious 4, and they were the Furious 4, in 78. But Raheem went over in 79, I think, he went over with them in 79, and they became the Furious 5. So it was me, Raheem, KK Rockwell, and Keith Keith. We were the original Funky 4. So probably for about like a year and a half, we were together as the Funky 4. Raheem left the group. The last time we performed together, was like in June of 79. But we had a battle with the Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5 on May 11th, 1979. My group, some of the guys in the group felt like he wanted to go over to become a member of the Furious 5, so it was a fallout. I was very close to Raheem. He left, I left, right? So when he left, I left. the 2 members that was left wind up getting 2 more new members, which they was the new Funky Four. So within that month or 2, I came back because the manager asked me to come back. When I came back, I then became the +1. So for your audience that didn't know that, a lot of times, they say, okay, well, Sha-Rock, she was a part of the Funky Four +1. No, I was the original Funky Four. And what that means is that I was the original Funky Four that was on the street of New York City from the front line when the culture and all the elements were being put together. The styling of rhyming, the clothing, the way that the flyers and information was being put out, the way that the sound systems were being, built, the way that we was able to move around in New York City, during that time without social media or radio. I was a part of that era that helped move that culture forward. I was a part of that era that helped created that era. I was on the front line. And so, with that says, it goes back to media that talks about hip hop, that go on somebody else's story without really like what you're doing. Let me talk to her. Let me find out what really, really went down. Because everything that I'm telling you can be backed up.
Right.
I lived that life. I lived it. So for anybody that you have ever heard, and I don't know that you did, or that you will ever hear, all you got to do is ask yourself, or ask them, show me proof. What made you different than Sha-Rock? And if you was out there before Sha-Rock, or you was out there as a female before Sha-Rock, or during the time of Sha-Rock, did you come across her? Was you in them street parks with her? Okay. Well, how many shows you did? Do you have the proof? And I promise you, it's a select few that can tell you that they was. Because I am the first female MC of hip hop culture. And the only reason why people were able to get away with it for so long is because I wasn't in New York City. I wasn't in New York City. But this is my legacy. And for everybody that's listening, please understand, I am humble. I've been humble for almost 40 something years. But this is my legacy and my children's legacy and hip hop legacy and the world legacy, to never allow someone to take everything away from me that I helped create it. Mm-hmm. So if it has anything to do with the money, I don't care about that. But if I'm owed it, I'm going to get it. Don't get me wrong.
That's true. I'm
going to get it. But that has never been an issue with me because I was on that front line.
In 1981, when you Funky 4+1 performed on Saturday Night Live,
yes, sir,
becoming obviously the first rap group to do so.
Yes, sir.
First, how did that happen? What was it like to get that call? And then what was the reaction? What was your reaction when you were there, mm-hmm, prior to going in, post performance? And then what?
Okay, so at that time, as I explained before, we on tour. We on a major tour with the Sugar Hill Gang. We get the call. Saturday Night Live want you to, Blondie, Debbie Harry Blondie want you to appear on Saturday Night Live with her. She's hosting. She wants the Funky 4+1. So we get the call while we on the bus, that she wants us. So we didn't get to complete the whole tour of the Sugar Hill tour because we were brought back to do Saturday Night Live. So we was like, wow, okay. So now we did cassette tapes, right? People know us. We did a song, Rapping and Rocking the House. More people know us. We did That's the Joint, right? But now, the world, it doesn't matter that the Sugar Hill Gang has the #1 song. For me, I don't know how the Funky Four was feeling, the other guys, But for me, I was like, you know what? Now the world gets to see how the authentic female rhymes from the Bronx that was on that front line, and they get to see how the Funky 4 plus one more came this far. Mm-hmm. So now it opened it up to a whole different other level. And we knew that night we were like the talk of the town in New York City because the word had got around, not through social media, or anything. We weren't dealing with that, but just by word of mouth in New York City that the Funky 4 plus one is going to be on Saturday Night Live, right? So everybody was sitting by their televisions waiting. We were stars because when we did the show and we came home, New York City was on fire. And it was like they was rooting for us. They was rooting for us because for every, person that was in New York City at that time or even was coming up that wasn't really like on the ground, maybe like from your, your Jay-Z's, and your LL Cool J's, or whatever, because I seen where they speak of, what was the moment of their life. They're saying when the Funky 4, plus one went on Saturday Night Live. So now I don't know this, but that means that they was rooting for a culture that they were beginning to get into, right. And so when we went on Saturday Night Live, we thought it was going to open up a lot more doors for us. But remember, we were still under contract, and we still had to go through a lot to get out of that contract. So we were stagnant. So we, was booking our own shows. As far as like managers and all that stuff, we could only book what we did. So we was using that to be able to go around, to the different venues and setting things up or whatever. But we felt like Saturday Night Live was supposed to take us to another level. But that level at the time was the control of the label because we still hadn't yet figured it out, far as dealing with the record industry.
Do you wanna rock? Do you wanna dance? Do you wanna rock? Are you willing to take the chance?
Now this is the way we wine and dine, and at the same time mess with your mind on the same identical beat one time, as we possess the beat that'll make you wanna rock, taking you on down to the last stop.
We are the funky. Yes, we are the